Now, okay, this is an interesting subject. Two types of websites. In my view, there is something called brand and self-centric websites. And the other one is customer-focused websites. How do you distinguish these two? It's actually very simple. You need to understand that people come to your website not to find out how great you are. They come to essentially to solve a problem or a need or a pain. So if your website is talking about your ISO 9001 certifications and how many offices you have and how many team members you have and how widespread your offices are, that's all rubbish. You need to solve the problem. Nobody is interested in finding out how great you are. The second brand-centric problem that I find in many websites is the use of the word we, us, our, and or the brand name. And these are not mistakes made by small people. I've seen big brand names doing this. There is a fundamental flaw with this. That means basically what you're saying is, I am doing you a favor when you express yourself this way. And people are coming to find whether you have a solution, not to understand how great you are. So this is running counter to the problem solution method. Now there are multiple facets on which the brand centricity or self-centricity is manifest. I'll get into that a little later, but this will give you a quick understanding when you look at a website. If there's too much we, us, our, or brand name, and the guy and the marketer is talking about himself rather than the customer's problems, then it is not a customer-centric website. It's essentially a brand-centric website. The information architecture is also sometimes a giveaway. So you will find your About Us as the first link. And then you will find services as the next link. And then you will find a whole bunch of other laundry list items like careers. Then it finally ends in something called contact us. Now, when you do your menu this way, you're not prioritizing as to what is important for the customer. The customer is not interested in this. The customer is just interested in this and this. Okay, so people who are ruthlessly customer focused only have these two items in their menu. Everything else is secondary to this. I'll show you websites which have this in place. You will definitely see lots of websites which don't have this in place. Okay, so customer-focused websites are easy to distinguish, one from their navigation and two from their language and messaging. They are focused on the customer's problem and how to solve it. So they start with the problem, pain, and then get into the solution. Here you dive straight into the solution. I'll also tell you why this is better than this. Okay, as we go along. Okay, there is one more point which I wanted to make here. is the concept of storytelling. So when you combine customer centricity and another aspect called storytelling, you get really good, powerful conversion elements into your website. Now, what is storytelling? In storytelling, you're essentially using the structure of myths and stories and using the same structure for brand stories. So this is not once upon a time there lived a king in a forest. It's not that. That's the messaging. We are not talking about the messaging. We are talking about the structure. The structure of a story starts with a character. Who has a problem? Okay. And in order to solve this problem, the person meets a guide. And the guide issues, the guide actually gives the hero or the character a problem, a plan to solve the problem. And along with the plan, he issues a call to action. And there are two outcomes to any good story. One is tragedy. That means this is a failure. And the other one is comedy, which is success. Now let me explain this to you. The character is always the hero in the story. And the hero in the story should always be the customer. Now this tells you where the hero becomes the brand. It goes directly against the grain of storytelling. Okay, so the hero is always the customer who has a problem. Problems happen at 2 or 3 levels. One is usually marketers need to be sensitive to 3 levels of problems. The first one is called the external problem. The next one is called the internal problem. And the third one is called the philosophical problem. The external problem is what marketers usually solve. That means I feel hungry, therefore I need to eat, therefore I go into a restaurant. So eat is my problem, or hunger is my problem. Eat is the solution, and the restaurant is where I go. This is the external problem, is eat or restaurant. Internal problem is I am a vegan by nature, therefore I want only organic food. So I'm choosing the type of restaurant that I go to. And tied to that is also a philosophical argument that I do not wish to harm animals. So now you see 3 levels of the problem. One, which is external problem, which we largely solve. Then there is an internal problem, which we must sort of prize out of this customer. And there is a philosophical problem. And if you can align yourself through your messaging to all 3, you will have a much better chance of conversion. I'll give you an example of this. One of my clients called us for a meeting for a website, and at the end of the day, they agreed with our website plan and they gave us the contract. About 6 months later, I realized that what they were looking was not the website. The website was the external problem that they were trying to solve. What they were actually looking at was how do we meet the next quarter's targets. We are way below that. So this was the internal problem that they were trying to solve. And philosophical problem could be, we need someone who knows this business very well, and we have done enough experimenting and burning of our hands, so someone knowledgeable. Or with enough experience. Sometimes this can be good versus evil. This happens a lot in stories which are translated into films. Okay, so if I knew at that time that website was only solving an external problem, there was an internal problem that I needed to solve as well as a philosophical problem, then my messaging could have been aligned to this. But what happens normally is you only try and look at this. So the more granular you can get with your customer motivation, the better it is. Okay, so that explains the problems. Now, the guide is always the brand. So, in your copy and messaging, you should look or sound as if you are the friend helping someone with a problem. Not that I am the greatest, best, please come to me. Okay. What the guide does is also gives him a plan. Now the plan can't be complicated. It has to be as simple as 1, 2, 3, 4. And how is this manifest on a website? That means you need to tell the customer that take these 3 simple steps to buy the product or service. That is at one level. Now in certain categories, you might have the price mentioned. In which case, the plan would be to walk him into that price. Okay. Issues the call to action. This is what is known as a CTA on a website. You will find multiple CTAs. I'll give you an example of that when I get into website. And tragedy and comedy. Now, this is a very interesting thing. What is tragedy and what is comedy? And why both are needed? Tragedy is contrasted with comedy. What is tragedy? Tragedy is status quo, not buying the product, the things you stand to lose. Or the opportunity cost. If you didn't buy this product, what would you lose? Versus the solution or price of the solution. So at one level, you're contrasting opportunity cost with the solution. And you have to have this to sweeten this. So tragedy and comedy are necessary for a story. And what they do is they sweeten the solution. Without a tragedy, there is no story. So this is very critical ingredient in your messaging. And most people don't even realize this. So I've explained to you what these two kinds of websites are. And I've also told you how to tell a story. Okay, story is not because, don't look at the messaging of the story, look at the structure of the story. So it starts with a character who has a problem, who meets a guide, who gives him a plan and issues a call to action that results in either success or failure. Failure sweetens the success. So the mention of failure is important to sweeten the success. And without failure, there is no story.